Here in Vet Life Reimagined, we talk about mentorship and support because they're essential to thriving in veterinary medicine. The Ready Vet Go mentorship program helps early career veterinarians confidently transition from student to successful practitioner with real world guidance on communication, time management, well being, and case discussions. It's perfect for individuals or practices without a formal mentorship program. Enrollment for the October cohort closes Friday, September 12th. Use code SPRINKLE for 10% off at Ready Vet Go. Link in the show notes. That's code SPRINKLE, SPRINKLE.
People ask me, like, what do you do, or how did you grow? Or I'm like, guys, like, I'm a tech. I'm a crazy cat lady. I love my Shanks. And I have horses, and I'm a technician who cares for the field, who have to build businesses.
Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. My guest today has built her career on spotting the little moments of opportunity, listening deeply, and turning them into meaningful change. Charlotte Weir started as a veterinary technician, moved into management, and went on to help launch veterinary startups that have changed the way practices operate, including Petwell Partners and the relief platform Roo. She's a leader who understands the DNA of a team and a practice, and she knows how to build trust, keep culture intact, and still create growth. In this conversation, Charlotte shares how to recognize leadership traits in yourself and others, and the best-in-class way to bring relief veterinarians into your practice without disrupting your team, and why understanding your practice's ecosystem is key to sustainable success. We'll also talk about her creative solutions like building a nap room for her team and how technology and AI are shaping her vision for the future of veterinary medicine. This episode is full of ideas and insights you can take straight back to your own team and apply for your own career journey. Let's get to the conversation with Charlotte Weir. Welcome, Charlotte. I'm very excited to have you on Vet Life Reimagined. I love that you are bringing a background in veterinary management, business. Well, we'll be able to talk about all of that. But I love to start with the question, when did you know you were interested in veterinary medicine?
I'm sure you probably get this answer like all the time, but I'm obsessed with animals. As a child, I was that child like out in the garden catching mice, putting them in my pockets, like awkwardly bringing them in my house, snakes in the bathtub, like you name it. Like I brought every creature into the home. And so that extended out into adulthood. And then I followed a science track through college. So that just really kind of extended into the adult years.
I'm sure your family loved that.
They were not a fan.
Well, you started as a veterinary technician around the age of 20. So that would have been somewhere around college, maybe after college. How did you end up discovering, an opportunity to start as a veterinary technician?
Yeah, so that's kind of funny. I entered as a CSR. It was just the position that was open at the local vet practice. And I was pre-vet undergrad, and I met with the veterinarian, and I was a science geek. Like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, I was all in it, and I was throwing out all this terminology that I was learning, and I was geeking out. And she was just like, wait a second, like, do you want to be a tech? Like, this is like, you're kind of in this. And I was like, yes, if you would train me, that would be amazing. I would love that. And so she hired me on as a technician right away. She actually called me a quarter tech because obviously I was like young and just super unknowledgeable about anything, but really bubbly, really liked people. And she's like, I'll train you to be a room tech. Don't break anything. And, just be nice to the clients, and obviously would teach me restraint and, vaccination protocols, et cetera. But yeah, that's exactly how I got into it as a vet tech, like right off the bat.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, that was a general practice. Did you enjoy that? I happen to know you jump into emergency medicine. So were you looking for something a little bit different? What kind of led you to start, looking at different options within veterinary medicine?
For sure. I loved it. I think the practice was interesting because we were the only practice for 30, 45 minutes, out in like a small town. So we saw everything. We saw emergencies, and, you just kind of handled it all, whether it was a goat, a chicken, a dog, a cat. Like, you just kind of did what you had to do. And I think it was a little bit, like old school. But I have, crazy respect for old school and just doing what you can do to help that animal to the best of your abilities. And I learned a lot there, but it really drove me to want to learn more and get into emergency and internal. And so that's kind of what my curiosity is, never satisfied. And so that's really what pushed me into getting into a little bit higher level medicine.
Awesome. Well, do you want to share just a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, for sure. And so I jumped in and did some emergency and then branched off and did internal ultrasound. Worked with a veterinarian. Her name was Dr. Jane Toomey. Dr. Toomey is phenomenal. Cornell grad, just diplomat, internist. I learned a lot from her. That was just like probably one of the most exceptional positions in my career. Just learning the level of professionalism and communication. And I think learning from her that diagnostics aren't treatment. I think that statement stuck with me because when you're working in sort of like those like really contentious moments with a really sick pet and an owner, and you're sort of waiting for that answer, and they're probably dumping a lot of those finances into sort of finding that answer. Just watching how she handled those tense moments and her communication style and her poise, I really mirrored that communication style as a technician and growing. And then later on, bringing that into like my management style and how to de-escalate situations. And then also just understanding the reality of the situation. I just had a lot of respect for how she delivered hard news because quite frankly, by the time they got to internal, it typically wasn't, super bright future for that pet, unfortunately. And so just watching how she handled that was just like wonderful learning experience for myself. And then went on to did some shelter med, which was amazing, having great impact there. You really learn to be resourceful as a technician. You're typically on by yourself and you're treating, a general population of like 100 plus. And then obviously you're limiting transmission of disease, et cetera. So your PPE has to be on point and you're sort of restraining for yourself and you're doing diagnostics on your own. It's definitely you sort of jump in the deep end, but you really learn to sort of communicate well with the animals and sort of kind of learn to draw little lines of communication with each other and like, hey, I have to do this, but we're going to work together. So I learned no matter the technology that's available, you can find quality of care, standard of care. So it was cool to just learn the whole realm as a tech.
Yeah, I think you did really get a diverse experience in veterinary medicine and in different types of situations, different types of maybe clients or pet situations too. That's going to be really interesting to carry into a lot of what is about to come. And you mentioned you were pre-vet in college, and then you didn't end up going to vet school. Do you mind sharing a little bit? Was there something that was like, no, I see myself more this direction? Like what helped with that decision?
Yeah, Tufts had waitlisted me, just like never going to get in. I started into when I moved over to shelter, I actually fell into management. And I think naturally I fell into leadership. I was playing soccer and sports, team captain. And so I think falling into leadership and management and shelter med, I found that like I could have an impact on a team. And so I'd always supported vets as a technician, right? To that sort of like delicate dance, especially like in this, it like literally is a dance where you're sort of like handle like the preoperative and then the induction, and then you're in the surgical suite, and then you're certainly doing a dance for sterility, et cetera. You're on a vent. And so there's all of these things, but it is a very coordinated dance. And you're trying to do it in a time limit and have precise and then get them off post-operatively recovery, et cetera. And so all of this and having that relationship with veterinarians and having their trust also in making sure that you do exactly what needs to be done correctly was really important. And I think what I found in leadership, I had the opportunity to support veterinarians in a different way beyond just servicing as a technician and really help have a better quality of life and not only employing and training and mentoring techs to the quality they're seeking, but also their quality of life in managing departments. And then moving on to manage a practice in Houston, Texas. So that's sort of how I decided to perhaps pivot, going off to vet school myself a nice like world where I could move in and sort of go entrepreneurial path. And it was not an anticipated switch in any way, but it just sort of happened. It wasn't planned.
A lot of things in life end up not being planned, so that is completely fair. I think this is a good time to ask because I think there's often the situation where veterinary technicians get put into management situations and it doesn't go as wonderfully as you're describing. So do you want to share maybe some of your observations? You made a facial expression. So do you mind sharing a little bit about maybe where's the success? Like, how do I know if that's right for me? Feel free to bring it back to yourself too, and how you really realize that that was where you wanted to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a really pertinent point. I think for me, I get more excited about others' success as a focal point than my own. And I think if you're going to get into leadership, you should be excited about others succeeding. That should be a motivating factor for you. Of course, we all want our own success. Like, yes, like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, like I don't want to. We all do. That's innate, right? But if I sit here and think like what excites me today is watching a team succeed. It's goal setting and then moving that team to that goal as a unit and building that team, having intentional conversations, mentoring, what sort of graduate those levels, taking those steps. My leadership is about that investment. It's about that mentorship, being motivated to do so. And so if you're a person that likes to take that intentional time and have those conversations, you certainly follow a management path. Person who's more excited about title or pay associated might not be the motivating factors to get into leadership. Those come with it, but they're not going to keep you motivated long term, and you won't be successful long term. It's really like you succeeding, your team succeeding. And that's what I found with sort of building leaders and sort of identifying my organizations that I work with now who have those like leadership traits and characteristics, and they're fun. And I kind of like leaders that are like wild like me, that just this little scattered energy. It's really just like grit and determination. Pull them in and give them a lane, and the motivation and the motivating factor to unite people. They're leaders. But if for themselves, then they're individual contributors. That's okay. Every organization needs that too. There's lanes for everyone, but I think to be successful, just sort of know what motive, that's what you go after. But I have seen where people sort of are like, you've been a tech for 5 years, good luck. And the tech's like, crap. And like, I get it. They know everything and they know all the clients and they know the protocols, but not the management part. But that's the execution checklist part. The management part is about the motivating intention, the culture. That's the stuff keeps you up at night. Task management. We actually have AI that can do that now. But leadership is about people, and it's different.
Yes, and you can grow and develop in other ways outside of management, right? So it's good to understand like, how to identify what direction works for you. And you mentioned Houston, so you moved, you went somewhere a little warmer, and you also mentioned entrepreneurship, and Houston is where you met Petwell. That's where Petwell was founded. So do you mind sharing that story, how you got introduced to this company and got pulled in really early in the process to help build this company?
Yeah, Petwell, my first veterinary startup, and I had just moved here a year and a half ago, packed up my Mustang with my dog and my cat, literally moved down with nothing, like air mattress, granola bars, like nothing, like really nothing. And I was like, gonna make it on my own type thing, the single ladies vibe, right? Like just gonna make it. And I had by a recruiter, Christy O'Farrell, love Christy. And Christy had said, like, these are recruiting for an ops leader. They're looking at doing construction. And so back moment on consolidation and was like, "Oh, Christy, like, I don't know that, that's not like my vibe." But she said, "No, like, they're really cool. Their vision's cool." So I met with the co-founders and I really liked their vision and mission. And I think what was really important, like if the pitch had been like profit, pets for profit or something along those lines, like I probably would have been like, "Yeah, I'm good, guys. Good luck." Like it was very much about really looking to unite a group of practices and as well to leverage those practices, and it gave that empowerment to our techs and our vets and sort of have that sisterhood of practices going in local areas, metro areas to support each other. I love that. I was like, yes, now we're talking team terms. Now we're talking like sportsy. And I get excited because like, here's the captain over here. So I said, sign me up. And I had never, obviously I'd never done a startup and I had never jumped in blindly to that didn't exist. And quite frankly, it was so naive and it was risky. I just thought it'd be fun. So here we go, blind dive into Petwell Partners. And we acquired the first practice, which definitely needed a lot of TLC on the facility side. And so we did some evacuation of some of our residents who had resided in the ceiling for quite a long time. And we had taken those guys and found them a lovely home outside of the facility. And we had sort of spiced it up and brought in experience that we know and love and really lifted the practice. And then that one practice grew to like 56 across the US over like 7-8 year span. And during that time, built such a cool team. I mean, the practice managers across Houston, I had like 13 practices in the Houston area. The bonds we built as a team were just so fun. We had a blast. And through these acquisitions and integrations of running these practices, I think what was the coolest thing is what Petwell did was every practice ran its own unique ecosystem. So although we acquired a practice, it remained its own identity and not just like in the falsehood, like, oh, be yourself, stay yourself type thing, but like truly they ran as their own ecosystem. And we were able to understand their own client base, their own facility needs, and then address that, market to that client base, understand function within their team, their skill set, market that team, that skill set, and then address those pets to the best of our abilities. And then the coolest part is we all referred to each other. So it was just this awesome referral unit. And I would have these monthly practice manager lunches that were just like, it was just like a sorority club, like so much fun. Like I just think back and I'll say I never wanted it to end. I'm not going to lie. Like it was the coolest thing I think I've ever done in my career. And it wasn't anything I did. The worst part was it was everything that my teams did in particular. Everyone just worked so hard for the same common mission. And that was just like, we wanted to provide pets the same we wanted for our pet at home. And I think that's like very simplistic way to say we want to care for something well, So Petwell did that. It was really cool to build. So that's how Petwell started, and the teams we recruited were very much centered around that.
Now, were the founders, did they have veterinary backgrounds, or were you kind of like the only one when it was the three of you at the very beginning?
Yeah. I follow on that. They're amazing. I learned a lot from them. They learned a lot from we shared that. So it only was a journey that I'll always value for sure.
Well, you mentioned being a curious person and loving to learn. And so, I think entrepreneurship is one constant learning journey. So that makes sense that you were thriving in that scenario. And I'm curious, what do you think were some of the keys to building trust with the hospitals to, acquire them along the way? Because I think building trust is really hard. I think I almost wonder if it's getting harder in today's time. So what do you think are some of the keys to building trust?
Well, I think just being like really authentic who you are. I don't dress it up. I'm a tech. Like, people ask me, like, what do you do? Or how did you grow? Or I'm like, guys, like, I'm a tech. I'm a crazy cat lady. I love my Shangs. And I have horses and I'm a tech. Like, I'm a technician who cares for the field, who happens to build businesses, right? In vet med that are supportive of doing the vets and techs in the field. Think like building trust is about being authentic to who you are, your style, being very unapologetic in that as well, staying true to yourself and others around you. Very active listener. When I'm introduced to whether it's a new practice, a new person, I ask questions. I have nuance in making any statement about your business circumstances if I have changed your practice. That is very presumptuous and arrogant of me to stand and make any statement. So definitely listening, coming into my practice here that I own and operate today in Houston, and making assumptions and sort of crashing in team and culture that I've worked really hard to build, and not ask appropriate questions or having the intentional conversations to maybe uncover lies. There's always a lie. I'm sure no one makes just an assumption or guess or, decision on a whim when it comes to practice management. And I think when you're building trust, especially during an integration period or an operational change, really, honestly, any change management, it's always that transparency. So don't avoid the intentional conversations. I always make time for them. It's an hour block. It's not going to less than an hour. So I set the time aside and we leave having that transparency. I'm also big on buckets, by the way. Huge bucket fan. What's Megan's bucket and what's our shared bucket? And I let the key holder name their buckets because I want to know what's off limits. And if that's your bucket, I will respect that bucket. And then the shared bucket is usually where I like to build trust because I want to understand how I can work with you, Megan, build trust so that you can see that I have vested interest, your best interest. So it's a process. Trust is earned. It's not a given. And so I build it.
Yeah. On that note, and since this model was also one where you let the hospital still maintain a lot of its identity and culture, that was the business model. I've seen you in a couple of different articles talk about the DNA of a team or the DNA of a practice. And I love that phrasing of it. Do you mind speaking to that, how you see that and how you can identify the DNA of a team or a DNA of the practice?
Yeah, I kind of evaluate each practice as its own living, breathing organism, its own ecosystem. Every single practice is different, and it's different at different stages in its growth. And what I've learned is every addition and every subtraction changes your ecosystem. And so, again, going back to management, whenever I look at a practice in its current state, future state, I'm making a calculation on that sort of result of an addition or subtraction because that ecosystem is going to be impacted by any addition or subtraction that you make. And I evaluate it for what it is today. And so these ecosystems that you build are very fragile. You have a facility that's sort of designed and specified in a certain way, right? You have limitations, call it the number of rooms, surgical availability, your surgical suite, the equipment. You have your team, your number of staff members, skill sets available, doctors, skill sets available. So you have these limiting factors. And then you have like your client base. All of this sort of like your living ecosystem. And each practice, that blend creates your practice. Don't try to make your practice someone else's practice. I never look across the street at Animal Medical Center. I love their practice. I can see them right out my window right now. They're a beautiful practice. We work super well together. I would never want to try to make 2-5 Sunset Vets Animal Medical. I refer to Animal Medical for what they do best. They kick over to us for what we do best. I like to grow practices for who they are and sort of celebrate who they are and what we're able to offer today. And then through change management, understand what we're able to offer in the future and what that looks like and how we can evolve through that. And I think it's just really important to sort of like take into account when you're growing a practice. I see time and time again as either through acquisition or change management coming in and trying to sort of drive a practice through pricing or implementing equipment. The equipment sits dusty. Clients walk on the pricing changes. It's not who they are. Understand your practice's DNA for who they are today. Know your client base, their wants and needs, their price points, they're willing to pay. Drive to that. What are they asking for? Meet their needs. Grow your practice there, but don't try to be something you're not. And that has been like a really important revelation for myself as I grew these practices through Petwell, was understanding like each unlock for that practice was different from their practice.
Since I tend to focus a lot on individual development, do you see personal development in a similar way?
Yeah, I do. I think every individual is fairly unique in how they can sort of progress, and especially in the environment they're in. I think in managing people, it's really important to put the right person in the right place. I've watched amazing employees fail because they're in the wrong position, not because they're bad employees. They're literally just in the wrong position. And then I've seen we've pivoted them to the right position and they've just blown it out of the water. But I think, again, that falls back to leadership responsibility is putting the right people in the right places.
And recognizing if they're not in the right place and not jumping straight to, okay, you just deserve to be off the bus. It could just be they're in the wrong seat. Yeah.
Yeah. And just acknowledge that. These doomsday scenarios, Megan, they don't have to happen. Leadership doesn't have to be this crazy march you up to the big boss office or something. That's not leadership. Leadership is transparency, communication, annual reviews. Don't even get me started. It shouldn't exist. Teams should know because you're having weekly conversations, not about hey, sure, you're doing a great job, kiddo, but it really, the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, my team at 2525, every week we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. The good is our successes for the week before. The bad's what that maybe we could have done better. And the one really that we did not see coming that maybe we could prep for. And some of those are just funny. We left the front door mats out in the rain and they got destroyed. I mean, if it's laughable, this should be fun. So
that's a very good perspective. And I've heard you say fun a lot. So I'll go ahead and say it because I just thought it was cool. I was going to save it for later when we talked a little bit more about your current practice. But also bringing in what you're talking about in your listening skills and how to, understand what the need is of the team and the practice. The example that I just thought was so cool is you noticed that your team enjoyed sleeping on their lunch break. And so you created a nap room. And I just think this is so cool. We need to talk about this because I am sure there are many practices who need a nap room. So do you want to go ahead and share about that one? Because I just thought that was such a cool story.
Funny you brought that up. I was giving her a tour of the practice. She popped in. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, come see the practice. And I was like, what can we nap room? And she was just I think really intrigued / terror that an owner celebrating a nap room. And I just I got to stop because I saw her physical response. And she's like, I'm so sorry I had that response. And I was like, no, it's okay. I don't, because I think I think it's weird, right? It's weird, but we have a nap room because my team's really tired and they eat. And usually if you notice, a lot of the teams will go nap in their cars. Houston, it's 105 degrees. So I noticed they were napping in their cars. And so I built a nap room. So we have croutons shaded out. And we have the AC cranking and they have a little board that they sign out their little nap room. And and they come back refreshed. And so anyway, yeah, like it works.
Well, it's very insightful because even if it's not necessarily a nap room, there's a lot of people that I think could benefit from a quiet room where it is just a room off the main where it's quiet and you can decompress because I mean, what we do is it's a hard job. We can love it, right? When we are appropriately maintained. And sometimes it really is just, I need 5 minutes in a quiet room. And I just, again, to me, it really stood out as one, you were noticing something that was important to your team and you did something creative about it that to some people may seem weird, but how beneficial I think it could be. So I just wanted to pull that out because it stood out to me. So. And then somehow on top of running a practice, you also have another job, which we can back up just a little bit. So Petwell was acquired after 6+ years,
Yeah.
6-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah. We sold to MBA, I think year 8, but during that time we started Root. So pivoted over to Root to start because we saw operational need there.
So are these the same founders? I didn't make that connection.
Yeah. So the conversations came about in that, I mean, we noticed that we were having trouble getting relief for our teams, and the other agencies were wonderful, all of them. It was difficult to manage the multiple locations. I found myself emailing a lot, texting, like you're sort of managing multiple agencies and you're just trying to maintain all of it, right? And I had a master spreadsheet, and David, they're the ones who are like, hey, we want to chat through this. And so I started sort of like working with them on that. And year 6, they're kind of like, look, we're going to go for this. And, Rue restarted, and I moved over to Rue to head that out with our CEO, Lisa Hu. And we kicked off Rue, and we started in Houston, Texas. And the goal was to basically return empowerment back to vets and techs, control over their schedule, and also obviously address sort of the bottleneck relief for hospitals. And that platform just supporting that connectivity, right? That easy access to vets and techs as well. So we kicked off, and it has just gone wild in the best of ways.
Well, you launched in probably the ideal time in 2019, which was the pandemic when people remember. So yeah, I think that, I mean, peak time for, I think the time of relief work for sure.
Yeah, it really took off. And the coolest thing about Rue is like, it's such a passion project for me. Mainly because like watching it grow just so organically, and everyone sort of be like, oh wow, it's that easy. Like just it's like the aha moment. Whether it's a vet who's, enrolling, or a technician, or even a hospital, and they see the template format for posting, like they're just like, what's the catch? And I'm like, this is crazy part. Like there isn't, and they're just still like, the apprehension is crazy. And then watching them use it, you're just like, you're waiting for them to be like, gosh, yeah, no, this is like super simple. And I'm like, yeah, for the people, by the people, because we were you. Like we were literally in your shoes. And so we built it.
And I like how even early on you were thinking veterinarians and veterinary technicians. So I just want to emphasize that for anyone who's thinking about that role as well as veterinary technician roles for relief work. So I think that was very, very forward thinking. The need was there, but you guys, you went for it. I think some of it is just jump in sometimes. And again, it was fantastic timing. And you're right. It seems so perfect, I think, for a lot of the challenges. And I was just talking with a friend yesterday, but she's in France and she has a startup that she's trying to work on. But entrepreneurship, you need to have a little extra work on the side to finance yourself. And so she was like, well, I have this 1-month contract, but then I don't have anything. So I got to go find a contract. And I said, well, don't you have relief work? And she's like, what's that? I was like, oh my goodness, this is so perfect. This is exactly what you need. So yeah, hopefully it, grows into these other countries because it's not just a US thing. I think this is an issue across the board, but I know we've talked about, yes, I mean, it was perfect in the pandemic times. Is like we needed people like crazy. And I think it's lightened up a little bit as cost of care has gotten higher. We're seeing slightly fewer patients coming into the practice. What are you seeing with the evolution of relief work? And not that I don't think it's going away, but what do you think is the evolution of it from your very central perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think like relief work is changing in just a mindset. I think previously, well, we'll start with vets. Vets, I think, a little bit apprehensive because relief might have felt sporadic or maybe not sustainable. You'd have to sort of like generate your own leads, right? You'd have to go out and sort of like advertise yourself and then maintain your own schedule. And how would you compare that to full time employment with like a loss of health? And then, license and all of these benefits that come along with full-time employment. And then, taxation, because now you're a 1099 contractor. Like, what does that look like? And so relief may not have even felt like an option, frankly, as like a sustainable practicing medicine professionally. It felt more like I'll just take here and there, or maybe like an interim thing, like I'll do this short term. Or I think the shift now, which I think is amazing, is you can do this. Like this is actually like a huge opportunity where you can be an entrepreneur yourself, full control. And you have now the ability, and I will pitch Rue a little bit here because it's helpful with Rue, that you don't have to worry about doing any of that because you have a platform that maintains your schedule, that tells you how to do all of your taxes, that gives you access to our resources. The next part is you have full control. You're booking the shifts when you want, where you want, for the pacing, like it's full empowerment. And I think that just like wasn't available before. And I think it was a lack of connectivity. It's at your fingertips. It's on your cell phone in our app or on a laptop. It's anywhere that there's internet. And whether it's Rue, whether it's a competitor, having that flexibility, that connectivity, it's just changed for veterinarians. On the flip, same thing. Hospitals are seeing shift from not just using relief as like I hate the term, necessary evil, hurts my heart a little, but I hear it a lot and I get it. Like I do, I get it. Our clients, it's difficult to obviously to relieve veterinarian. They want to see the associate veterinarian. I understand that confidence and trust, what our veterinarians build. Myself, I totally understand. But we're seeing where are using relief to grow their practice. They're at stages where they're so busy on that Monday and Friday, their vets are at burnout capacity. They don't want to walk through that door Monday. That's not fair. It's up to leadership to acknowledge. And what they're doing is really savvy leaders saying, ooh, I see this. I know we're booking at full capacity before. I'm going to bring in a relief vet so that we have additional capacity. We already know the hook. We have someone to see that we can funnel to them. We can see the clients. The clients aren't blowing up my CSR and burning them out, because then that fatigue starts to crash down on your CSRs. The pets are being seen. Yes, there's a financial benefit to that. So their P&L starts to climb. Then they have the financial resources to start to think to add an area. They have the proof that growth. And it's a slow entry. They're Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays are adding that slow entry relief. And they're using relief to grow their practice, grow that P&L. Also, the P&L is an artifact. You're helping your techs and your CSRs. Because so to a client who wants to come through the door, who's hysterical because their pet is sick, doesn't feel good to any of us answering the phone. I can guarantee that. It's so heartbreaking. I can't stand being upfront. When I go downstairs and cover at the desk on Saturdays, it's I tell my team every Saturday, y'all's job is the hardest job. It is so hard. I am not naive to that. So we think of relief in such different contexts, because I think you can't keep it in one silo. It affects all facets of the practice. So we have that. And then technicians, now it's evolving where techs weren't really considered a large part of relief until recently. And now it's freed up because you'll need that additional support staff. So we're seeing techs really enter the relief workforce and expand, and especially platforms like Rue and others supporting that. So I think that's wonderful for all of us in vet med, where you hadn't seen that funnel previously. Now that's happening, and you're seeing that evolve. So all this is culminating. You have sort of like a free funnel, more in hospitals, more freedom on the vet and tech side, more opportunity for growth and development. I don't see it as a negative thing. This is all very positive.
Well, as an expert in, the DNA of a team and a practice, and you mentioned that sometimes these practices are a little bit nervous about bringing a stranger into that DNA. How do you help people through that? What's the success strategy for knowing your DNA and using relief to only enhance it and not hurt it?
Well, I think it's just literally inviting them into the conversation, right? Welcoming them into your practice. Whenever you bring a relief veterinarian, they're part of the team. Don't alienate a relief veterinarian coming through. We have a whole protocol for introducing relief into the practice. Number one, they are not referred to as a relief veterinarian. It is Dr. Megan. You walk through that door, it is Dr. Megan. They are expecting you. My team expects you. They know you by name. They're anticipating you. So you're assigned my very best technician for the day. You also have an assistant for that technician. That way you're guided through, all of your notes are entered, like you have guidance. You are fresh into the practice. You don't know where everything is in the practice. You have support, and that helps guide the veterinarian through the day. On the client side, the CSRs are trained also not to refer to the veterinarian as a relief veterinarian, also to have some background on Dr. Megan, your skill set, your loves, your passions. I know a lot about you before you come in. Book accordingly when we have clients calling in, and we highlight those skills. And it's really important to integrate them into your practice ahead of the scheduled day. And I think that drives success. It drives success with the clients in the introduction. My techs and assistants, before they go in their room, Dr. Megan, you're introduced before you walk in the room to my clients. And it's always, Dr. Kennedy wasn't available today. She's celebrating her her daughter Charlie's birthday. We have Dr. Megan today. She has 2 Sphinx cats. Also, your Sphinx owner is going through the roof before you walk in the room. Like, it's about being authentic. Again, it's just transparency, authenticity, and just sharing commonalities, because that starts to build that trust out the gate. Otherwise, it's setting you up for failure, the team up for failure. Clients are put on guard, and it doesn't feel good. So that integration, building that expectation.
That just makes me automatically feel like really good and excited. Does Rue help with that training and support that communication, or is that just something that you do in your practice?
We modeled it after what we do in the practice. So this is something that we've sort of built here in my practice, and then we've modeled it. We have handouts that we share, but Rue supports that with all of the hospitals. All of my hospital team, when we onboard a hospital, I've 2 lovely team members at Rue. They onboard all, and they share these tips and tricks with the hospital. I mean, even to the point where I have my really vets coming. We have orange juice and a muffin waiting for them. When they come in, we buy them lunch. How hard is it to come in and be the new kid at school? Hey, that's relief, right? Like, you're the new kid. So I just think, again, like, some EQ, know exactly what you're expecting of people coming in, and give them a little bit of warmth to get going. But we certainly support the hospitals and train them to do that, because it's really up to the hospitals to also foster relationship with the veterinarian and the technician coming in.
Yeah, I love the idea of having like a mini survey for the vet before they come in. It's like, what's your favorite drink? What's your favorite breakfast item? And being that interested in them, and to make sure that they're comfortable and they want to come back, because I think that's it too. If you create a terrible experience, that word will get out and nobody will come and help you.
That's how I feel. I'm like, guys, like, why wouldn't you want to just like, and again, what we do is hard enough. Like, we ride the emotional roller coaster every day just by virtue of what we deal with, disease and pets, euthanasia, and then we swing into a puppy appointment.
I know we're out of time. So while I have you here, when you look at veterinary medicine in general, there's so much going on in veterinary medicine right now. It's pretty crazy. What right now are you really interested in, and what gets you still very excited about veterinary medicine of the future?
So I think obviously like AI is super intriguing to me, just a general tool. I mean, I know there's a lot of hesitation and I certainly respect that. But for instance, we use COVID right now. I rolled it out about a month ago. And the time it's saving my team for note taking and the fact we can scan records and the summaries it provides and the integrative ability and the summarization from previous records and diagnostics is insanity. And so tools like that entering the field and acting as like supportive mechanisms for my veterinarians and technicians, like that's exciting. Like I'm super stoked about that. Medical advances obviously like always get me stoked. I'm like a science geek. One in particular I'm like really excited about is DLSN CA-1 that came out, PRN released from Trivium Vet. They purchased Trivium Vet recently and then put out the product. My 2-year-old Sphinx Noah, unfortunately, was diagnosed with HCM, and I was absolutely heartbroken, obviously. And he's on his 3rd dose of a drug that could potentially change feline medicine. 1 in 7 cats are affected. I mean, like, things like this are just life-changing, right? For pet owners. I'm a pet owner. Like, I'm in the field, but like I'm cheerleading for these advances. My team ecstatic. We got on the early prescriber list. I was relentless to get on this list. I like sent 38 letters to PRN, anything, right? And like if it works for Noah and we can help others and we can prescribe for other, like vet med is so cool. It's just an amazing field with amazing people. And whether it's in a medical advance, whether it's AI technology, it's just the people that make it cool. And it's what we're driven to do and the things that support what we do and the fact that we support each other. I think the more of that we can do, the better. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about continuing to build that community and that support.
Yeah, and a huge component of leadership too is being able to help bring in that support, because a lot of the team is doing the day-to-day, right? And so having that advocate of bringing in the advancements and letting them know that it's okay, it may take us a little bit of time, but this is how we can figure out the challenges to get to the other side, I think is really helpful. So I want to thank you so much for what you're doing. I admire you so much for all the different startups and things that you're bringing into the industry that I think are enhancing the lives of the colleagues that we love so much and also their career paths. I think you're opening up a lot of opportunities that to me are very exciting for the profession. And so one last question that I have, and this is beyond veterinary medicine, unless that is just what comes to your mind, but what is something that you're really, really grateful for right now?
Oh, wow. That's a really cool question. I'm just really grateful to be surrounded by people that are motivated to do better, whether it is vet med or whether it's my soccer team that I play recreational soccer with on Sunday, or it's, my sister that I go ride reining horses with. I'm just inspired by others, yourself, Megan, everything that you've accomplished, everything that you do. I'm motivated by doing better. And whether it's like one little single act of goodness or whether it's, planning massive lifts, I just think this world, it's easy to get kind of like sucked in right now into sort of like these darker and greater areas. But right now, I think it's feeling like I'm surrounded by people that are motivated to do really good things.
What I loved about my conversation with Charlotte is how she turned everyday clinic needs, like her team napping in their cars, into creative ways to make work better. She's also a great example of how leadership often comes down to noticing, listening, and caring enough to act. I want to thank you for listening. Vet Life Reimagined keeps growing because of incredible listeners like you. A huge thank you to Dr. Kelly Cooper. I'm grateful for her friendship and for her support in making this mission possible. Her consulting and speaking also help veterinary teams not just survive, but truly thrive. A lot of listeners are not followers, so if you haven't already, please follow the show now. Not only does this easy step help out the podcast, it also ensures that you won't miss the stories, ideas, and connections that can make your work and your veterinary career feel more sustainable and fulfilling. And if you know someone who's been thinking about leadership, relief work, or finding a role that really fits, share this episode with them. You might be giving them the encouragement they've been looking for. Until next time, keep reimagining veterinary life and keep making it uniquely yours.